Good morning again. Welcome back to Storytime with Rob. I hope you're enjoying this beautiful spring weather. It has been fantastic, and I hope you're all healthy, well, and happy. I have a good story for you today, and I hope you can figure it out as well. It's a good one. For those of you who may be a little older, you might understand this one even a little better than some of the younger folk. But that just gives you a great opportunity to explain to them the great important historical history of this great country. This one is called Danny Went West. In 1816, there was no Kansas City, Missouri. There was in that vicinity, however, a small military outpost, a fort on the fringe of what was then our American frontier, Fort Assange. Late in the year, that outpost was visited by a fellow named Danny. He was dressed in crude clothing, the kind worn by indigent hunters. Would the officers at the fort mind putting him up for a while? No, he was told they would not mind. So Danny remained at Fort Assange for 2 weeks, during which the soldiers learned the rest of the story. For years, Danny had been hearing wonderful stories about the western wilderness. He had been told about the fabulous lakes and rivers, of the grand mountains which lay beyond. Danny wanted to explore them. He wanted to taste the fresh water and savor the sweet air and see the crests of the Rockies surge upward into a shimmering blue sky. The men at Fort Assange appreciated Danny's youthful enthusiasm. Decades before, Horace Greeley would proclaim, "Go west, young man, and grow up with the country." Danny was determined to do just that, to go west. Still, the soldiers wondered if Danny knew what he was getting into. A half dozen years before, in 1810, mountain man John Colter had returned from that beckoning wilderness, the area which now intrigued Danny and he. Colter had just barely emerged with his life after the Blackfoot Indians had captured and almost killed him. The weather and the wilderness itself had nearly finished him off. Wouldn't Danny be just as happy back in Missouri territory? The soldiers had wondered. There was still much hunting and exploring to be done in those virgin forests, enough excitement to satisfy any eager adventurer. No, Danny protested. Missouri was getting too crowded, too civilized. He reckoned he'd be moving on, and so he did. He left Fort Osage, headed north up the Missouri River, then west on the Platte River across what is now the state of Nebraska. Danny followed the Platte all the way to the Rocky Mountains. When he ran out of river, he traveled overland. He crossed what is now Wyoming, northwest into Yellowstone country. Danny had plunged almost 1,000 miles into a land about which white men were only beginning to dream about. A rugged, dangerous journey. Threatened by Indians, he eluded them. Besieged by bitter weather, he survived it. After a season exploring that sometimes perilous, always awesome wilderness wonderland, Danny returned to the Missouri Territory to tell what he had seen. In one respect, his trek was unremarkable. For if anyone should have found his way all that way and back, he should have. You see, Danny was known as Kentucky's original settler, a trailblazer with no rival. Colonel Daniel Boone. And one thing more, I think you could say this is the rest of the story. This might inspire some of you out there. When Daniel Boone visited Fort Osage in 1816, before embarking on his journey of almost 1,000 miles westward on the Platte River to the Rockies, to the Yellowstone. And almost 1,000 miles back, before he had even begun that journey, he, Boone, was 82 years old. Think about that for a minute. All alone, 82 years old, thousands of miles, adventure, only Daniel Boone. So if that doesn't inspire you to get up and get out of your seat and go do something awesome, I don't know what does. But until tomorrow, be safe.